Well, here we are again. It's Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. We're going to look now at Ruth and Boaz. Ruth was a precious, precious lady of God who had, it seemed like unfortunately, ended up marrying the man she married. But that wasn't unfortunate. It was the will of God. Now, we think an awful lot of a person dying and going on. But back in the days, actually all the Bible does, even today, if God sees fit to take a Christian home today, they're going home. They're going to a better place. If I did not believe that and know that, I would probably be one of the most unhappy men you ever met, with having my wife leaving in April for heaven. But because I know that God had a reason for that, and I don't know what the reason is. I don't know if he had a special place for her at that particular time. I don't know if the day she was born, there was a date set for her, and she was going to go to heaven on that date. And God worked that out. I do not know that. I do know and do believe that she went to heaven because she was God's child. And say one year, when a terrible famine had struck Judah, Elimelech took his wife Naomi and their 2 sons to the land of Moab, which was south and east of their hometown in Bethlehem. Now there was nothing there to eat, so they were going to another place to find something to eat. But after a time, Elimelech died, leaving his widow and 2 sons. And when the sons were grown, they married 2 young Moabite women. One was named Orpah, and the other was named Ruth. This is the beginning of a beautiful story, and it's in the book of Ruth, chapter 1 through chapter 4 and 17. And after only 10 years, both sons died, and her daughter-in-laws were widows, and they were aliens in the land. What should they do? Well, Naomi decided to return to Bethlehem. I love it. Whenever somebody, one of God's people, had been out on a limb somewhere and something happened, they decided to turn to the house of bread, which was Bethel, and Bethlehem was there. So Naomi decides to turn and go back to the house of bread, where the God of heaven could work with her. But she did not want to force her 2 daughter-in-laws to leave their home country and their friends merely out of loyalty to her. So in a spirit of love and goodwill, Naomi told them, "Go return each one to your mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you as ye have dealt with the dead and with me." They had dealt kindly with her dead. Now they had 4 dead people over there that they had worked with, and now Naomi is by herself. Then she kissed them tearfully. "Goodbye, Orpah and Ruth." Ruth protested, though, that they would go to Judah with their mother-in-law, but she insisted that they stay there with their own people. Well, at this, Orpah kissed Naomi goodbye and returned to live with her relatives. Now, this is a picture from this moment on right here of God taking somebody he wanted to use and protecting them, keeping them, making preparation for them when they get where they're going, to take care of them the rest of their life, and to be part of the lineage of Jesus Christ, and to come down through. But Ruth was determined to stay with her mother-in-law, and she voiced her loyalty in those beautiful words. "And entreat me," she said, "not to leave thee." In other words, don't force me to leave you. Please don't force me to leave you, or to return following after thee from whither thou goest. I will go. Wherever you go, she said, I will go. And then listen to this. And where thou lodgest, I will lodge. She said, I'm going with you and I'm going to lodge with you. I'm going to take care of you. You're my mother-in-law and I'm taking care of you. And by the way, in that day, if a mother-in-law, a woman, did not have anybody take care of them, they were destitute. They were actually sometimes even cast out. I will lodge with thy people and shall be my people. Here's this Moabitess girl saying, your people are going to be my people. In other words, I'm going to convert to be an Israelite. And thy God will be my God. And where thou goest will I die. And there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. In other words, she said, Miss Naomi, no matter what happens, I don't care what it is, the only thing that's going to separate me from you is death. And that's it. I'm going to take care of you until the day that I'm dead. I die. And that's what she said. So Naomi and her daughter-in-law Ruth returned to Bethel. And when they arrived, the farmers were just beginning to harvest their crops of grain. And now it was customary for landowners to leave a small amount of grain behind in the field, which the very poor people could gather, or the word was called glean. They could glean, and thus have some feed to eat. So they would have something to eat. Well, there were two things the farmers did in that day. They left some grain in the field, and they also left the corners. They would glean around in a circle, and there were square corners, and there would be grain in the corners. And they left the corners for the poor folks of that day. So Ruth went out in the field to glean some grain for Naomi and herself. She worked hard. And when Boaz, the owner of the field, came by, he was attracted to her. God had sent her over there, and God had given her an attraction of Boaz. Now Boaz instructed his workmen to leave behind more grain than usual so that Ruth could gather enough to feed herself and her mother-in-law. And when Ruth got home that night and told Naomi all that had happened to her, Naomi was very pleased. She recognized Boaz as a kinsman. Very, very important. And one of the most important statements in the Bible here is this man was a kinsman to her. That was important because he's going to carry on the lineage, carry on the line. He has the right to carry on the line now because he's a kinsman to this girl, as well as a fine man. So she urged Ruth to continue working in his field. And Naomi was eager to find a suitable husband for Ruth. Was not Boaz just the kind of man to whom Ruth should be married? So Naomi believed in direct action, and she had Ruth to go to the threshing floor where Boaz was sleeping and proposed marriage to him. Boaz was very pleased. I will do to thee all that thou request, he told Ruth. For all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. So Boaz married Ruth. There's some things that are left out here. Naomi said to go and curl up at his feet. And then she went and curled up at his feet. And then that was a sign that she was willing to be his wife. And then he had to prove that he was a kinsman. And there was another man tried to claim this Ruth. And he said, well, if you are, pay this price. And the man said, I can't pay it. And well, he said, then we'll throw a shoe over the fence. And they threw a shoe over the fence, and they made a vow that Naomi would now that Ruth would now belong to Boaz. In due time, Ruth and Boaz and their first child, a son, who was named Obed. No one was happier than Naomi, who was a little boy's nurse. When he grew up, this boy became the father of Jesse, the grandfather of the great King David. And we see this lineage here is in the life of Jesus Christ. The human side of Jesus, the body of Jesus Christ, came through this lineage right here. God had it all planned. He set it all up. When God does something, he does it under the devil's nose, and the devil doesn't realize what's happening. So that's the case of it. So that's the little story of Ruth. Get the Bible down yourself. Read the whole story, because there's quite a few things that we didn't put in here that are in there. It's from Ruth chapter 1 to chapter 4 and verse 17. There's a lot to that story. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.